We are here. I'm very excited to say that we're here, podcast number 7 for Ducks Don't Get Cold Feet. And do we have the cyber royalty in the house? We have Mr. Moen Koo here, and he's actually in Adelaide, which is so exciting because he is a good mate. And to actually have him, well, I don't know if I should say he's a good mate actually, but to actually have him in town for once is fantastic. So, Mo, welcome.
Thank you, mate.
So, Mo, we had a bit of a look about you, obviously originally from Adelaide, and we first met probably in the early car scene back in the day, and you had a little hatchback back then, which was very exciting at the times.
Supercharged Corolla. So
we're going back a little while there. We'll leave the years out. But in saying that, that's how we met, really, and that's sort of been a lifetime friendship so far, which has been super cool. So I'm really glad to have you back in town. And one of the things early on in the piece when we talked about Moen is that you've had a pretty interesting upbringing. So
sure.
One of the things that we noticed before you went into cybersecurity, and I remember you used to be into games quite a bit, there's no doubt about that. But one of the things that I've picked up that you were doing is you used to be a stunt person. Is that true?
I don't know where you dug that up from, but yes, that was where I first started out.
So what sort of movies are we talking about? Like, you come across as the Asian karate fighter.
Well, karate is generally associated with Japanese. I have no Japanese background. Let me just put that out there to start off with. But
I could beg
martial arts is definitely...
I could beg to differ. There's a Corona to match up with the times of the Coronas here. And cheers.
Cheers, mate.
Moen's about to make an interesting conversation, I think.
Yeah, so when I first came out of high school, we got into making films, and myself and a couple of friends, we took it pretty seriously, and we started shooting some action films. And we actually entered into the 1998 Young Filmmakers Festival, and we won the People's Choice Award with something that we put together there. And we went on to do a number of other things, and I moved into a film and television company called Imagination Entertainment, which was way back in the day.
Yep.
And ended up running one of their online businesses there, and that's kind of what got me into tech.
Just like that. Like, it starts off, so the reality is, you could have been the next Jackie Chan.
Had I had the funding behind me to pay for the action movies that we were making, yes.
And I'm still yet to see one of these movies, so I am interested in it. But in saying that, in your upbringing, we're going to talk about cybersecurity, but in your upbringing, and did you have a fascination with technology, or were you the usual kid like me collecting comics and just doing things like that, or were you more of a Lego, put things together sort of man?
Neither, actually. I was always into the great outdoors. I was into mountain biking. I was into BMXs. I was into skateboarding. I was never into technology. In fact, I couldn't think of anything I'd rather not do than tech.
Wow.
As I was growing up.
So that's a U-turn. So at what time did you think that, maybe I'll have a look at this technology thing? And bear in mind, when we were in probably our 20s, the internet was just coming out, for being more adaptable. Yep. And let's face it, I can go back to school, and we weren't even using the internet when we were at school. So,
yep.
Jesus.
Yeah.
That. And I'm not a boomer. I'm just putting it out there. We're Generation X. I'm happy to say that. But, you talk about how we've adapted. We've been brought up with technology. Mm-hmm. Is that the way you saw it?
Yeah, no, not really. So where I first kind of got into sort of thinking about technology as a solution to a problem, where, let's take a step back. So my dad had one of the biggest sort of private accounting practices in Adelaide at the time, and big back then was like he had 20 accountants, let's say. And one thing that I always remember growing up, I used to spend weekends there, folding newsletters and putting them in post boxes and stuff like that as I was growing up. And one thing that I always remembered was there was a room inside his office building, which was called the filing cabinet room, and that was under lock and key. That door, was pretty much locked most of the time. And when it was open during working hours, every accountant had a key to their own filing cabinet drawer. My dad had the master key to all of them, but they all had a key to their drawer, and that was just always stuck out in my mind. And then one day, when I was in high school, all of a sudden the filing cabinet room disappeared. All the filing cabinets disappeared, and on everyone's desk was a computer. And I remember asking my dad, so how do you now know who's accessing what? He's like, oh, you don't need to worry about that anymore. This is the age of computers. Obviously, looking back now, a very naive statement. But back in those days, everyone was thinking that. Especially the ones that were not from our generation, that were from our generation. This was just so foreign to them that they just took it for granted that this is the way the world's going now.